on Liberia uncovers and showcases the best of Liberia and shows the world the truth about Liberia. We educate, elevate, and promote all things Liberia. We conduct interviews, panel discussions, debates, and more. Tune in to Focus on Liberia on Facebook and YouTube and be a part of the stories that make up the news.
This is Focus on Liberia, and I am Dennis Jah.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another edition of On Point. We are here to do a year in review. We want to go back January 2022 to December 31st, 2022. We want to look at issues that we discussed that affected the Liberian politics or the geopolitics of Liberia. With me are some great panelists, some of the best minds that Liberia has to offer. You know them. They are our staple names in Liberian politics. With me is Michael Padmore, one of our greatest minds from the ANC, Honorable Benjamin Kofi, who is now Kofi 2023, running for the presidency of the Republic of Liberia, another bright mind who has a lot to cover under this administration. And obviously, Mr. Jimmy Padmore, excuse me, Mr. Jimmy Eastman, excuse me, I don't want to start any trouble down there, but Mr. Eastman has always been with us here. Ladies and gentlemen, you are in for a treat. Let's go to our panelists, gentlemen. I want to extend my greetings. I want to extend my thanks and appreciation to you for being here with us for a whole year discussing these issues. Tell me briefly, how was your holiday and your family? And let's get to this work. Mr. Fennell, let's go. How are you? How's the family? How's the campaign? And what 2022 looks like to you?
First thing I want to say thank you for the invitation and thank you to Focus on Liberia. I really appreciate being here. Almost everybody, you guys are very good friends. I like the interaction. I like the dialogue. I had a good holiday and things are good, but we are happy on one hand, but we are sad on the other hand, based on the state of Liberia. So I'm very happy to be here to discuss and interact with you guys on issues related to Liberia. I say good morning, good afternoon, hello to all Liberians hearing the sound of my voice wherever you are in the world. I look forward to good interaction, and family-wise, I'm okay. Friends-wise, I'm okay. I appreciate all of you guys. Happy New Year, and I look forward to a prosperous year, and I look forward to a very vibrant interaction and dialogue today. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Padmore.
We are doing well out here in Minnesota. It's the middle of winter right now, so we're keeping warm. But we are thankful for the new year. Have lots of things in store. Actually just got done with a meeting with my people in Liberia. We kind of went through our 2023 calendar. And that calendar, even though it's just the 1st of January, that calendar is already full. So it's going to be an exciting year. We're looking for a lot of productive things and looking to continue to work with you guys here to move the Liberian political landscape forward. So I'm happy to be here. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Padmore. Mr. Eastman, Washington, D.C., how you doing, my brother?
Hello, everybody from the nation's capital. Last year had many little revelations for us, and in every year there's something to learn, and I'm glad to have the opportunity to go over the highlights of last year and what we can take from there. And also next year we know is the year for the elections in Liberia. A lot is contingent on that. So it's going to be, we're in for a lot of excitement and great changes. So I'm very excited to have this conversation. The family is good. I lost one of my friends and brother today, though. James E. Benjamin. I understand he passed this morning, and I'm deeply mourned by that because he was a younger brother and friend, and we'll miss him.
Thank you very much. And ladies and gentlemen, before we get any further, we got a little housekeeping here to do. As you know, Focus on Liberia has been here for the past 4 years, now heading into the 5th year. And Focus on Liberia is doing all it can to reach Liberians all over the globe, and especially our brothers and sisters in Liberia. And we are doing a fundraiser, a special fundraiser, where we can show appreciation. If this program is good to you, as it has been good to me, then it behooves us to make a contribution to this show. So Focus on Liberia can reach our brothers and sisters. They are promoting their our ideals to Liberia through radio stations in Liberia, partnership that costs money. I think our goal this year is $10,000. If you can give a little, that's fine. If you can give more, that's fine. But we'd love to have you contribute. At the end of this show, I think our CEO is going to put out a flyer where you can do your contribution through Zelle, Cash App, or check, whichever is comfortable with you. Now, let's get started here. We have several topics when we say year in review. There are those of you who are very much interested in budgetary issues. And there are those of you who are politicians who are looking at the political landscape and talking about a competing emphasis on crowd, on what are the protests, or you call it rally. We are talking about those who are talking about one-round victory and so forth. So the political landscape is very crowded. Our plate is full. That's why we have the best that Liberia has to offer. Those are our brothers and sisters watching. I'm looking at Riverside Pro, Mr. Dualu, Don Theo, YG, Jackson. We want to thank you guys for being with us for all this time, the entire year. But let's jump into it. Can we see the first topic here? We are talking about year in review. Let's look at the first topic here. I know this is something that Mr. Ben Fannell had interested. Mr. Ben, Mr. Fannell, we're talking about issues from the past, and one that actually touches your heart was the budget. Mr. Fannell, we're talking about could you mute please if you are now you were talking about the budgetary issues that actually your pet peeve is the budget, and you saw two items on the budget that actually on this show we say what catch your heart. In Liberia we say what catch your heart. The American man say what catches your heart. So tell us, what are those two things you are talking about? The misappropriation of line items in the budget, and then the lack of progress report when it comes to budgetary expenditure. Talk to us.
Thank you once again, Mr. Gavin. You see, there's an idiom that we can't keep doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results. in Liberia, it seems like we ignore that. Budget in, budget out, especially so I would say under the UP administration and now the CDC administration. These are not what I want. These are some of the requisite requirements when you deal with national budgeting. You must have something called a budget performance report. You can have them quarterly, or you can have them annually. Let me tell you why that is important. Because whenever we make appropriations, those appropriations are guided by policies. We have to know the effectiveness, the impact, especially so on our people. So after we spend X amount of monies, last year it was a little over $800 million, almost $1 billion. We have drafted another budget for next year. But now, as we speak to you, even under the law of Liberia, every ministry is supposed to give an annual report, especially to the Ministry of Finance. I have the act creating the Ministry of Finance and Development Planning. There is a specific line that puts them under the law to give performance report. There is none. We don't know how the $800 million was spent. Liberians don't know. We don't know if they were effective. We don't know if they were ineffective. We don't know even if we ran Liberia at a loss. Liberians don't know. But under that cloud of uncertainty, unknown, we have another budget for next year. So my thing here is, what is the basis for next year's budget? Liberians, I will continue to emphasize this. The CDC administration, the level of incompetence, it bothers me to such an extent, as if there is total, there's total lack of a sense of accountability from the people. We have the largest budget ever in Liberia last year, $800 million plus. That money technically is all spent or it's all gone. What were the impact on the lives of Liberians? And let me just say one thing. And last year we had the highest PSIP ever in Liberia. PSIP means Public Sector Investment Program. That's a mechanism the government used to spur job economic growth. The highest last year was $139 million. We don't know the impact. We don't know nothing. But we have another budget. And let me tell you what brings me to next year. Next year, there's a line item on page number 13. President George Weah, he has a line item 1024. It's called humanitarian outreach. Is the president a humanitarian? The basic idea, I worked for the United Nations before. The basic idea I know, but humanitarian work, most time the owners of those entities, they go out and raise funds. We are talking about tax dollars being given to somebody to conduct humanitarian activities. Let me tell you why that is bad. Because if somebody comes to you, especially within the Liberian context, and gave you some form of humanitarian relief, sorry, I have to emphasize this. Most times, the recipients feel some form of quid pro quo. Oh, while we were here in this dire state, this man came to assist us. So there is some kind of expectation, especially so on the recipient in terms of giving back. The president should not be in the business of giving humanitarian assistance to Liberian. And let me tell you why that is grave. It is $700,000. That is page number 13 of next year's draft budget. The president shouldn't have access to that kind of money. And for me, it's illegal. So those are the things I want to stress. Thank you.
Great. Mr. Eastman, those of us who are older enough here, I think the baby in this group may be Mr. Patmore. Mr. Patmore, with your baby face, we got what we are saying here is one of the people that I want to quote is, and I hate to do this, but I have to do it because it's in the context of history, is Darius Dillon. He says, no matter what is it that you do, as long as it's in the budget, and the legislative body that is there to do check and balance, and they look through it with their, like it said, fine or two with a fine tooth. He said, once they go through it and it is approved, it is legal. I see my brother Ben talking about, he thinks it is legal. And the budget cannot be illegal because it is a legal tender document approved by both houses. 3 branches of government. One, the executive branch, makes a budget proposal, sends it to the House and the Senate, basically, and for what we call concurrence from the House to the Senate and the executive. It is a legal tender document. You cannot tell me that it's legal, Mr. Eastman. Chime in here. Mr. Fennell, who is going to be president of the Republic of Liberia, is not telling what is he going to do to abolish the old tradition, but instead he said it is illegal, which is not true. Because as a citizen, I am in the know that this budget went through both houses and it was approved by Darius Dillon and the opposition that this is legal. Chime in, Mr.
Yes, the Senate and the House, they are lawmakers. They are there to enact or represent what we call our constitutional articles. If they see something that is against the people, they can enact a law or a provision to amend the same. And that's what they're there for. And I totally agree with you, Mr. Gaiman. If they have approved the budget, it becomes a legal document. What Mr. Fennell is addressing, that the before these this budget is brought into law, certain things, certain amendments, certain provisions were not met, and they went about it in the wrong way. But then again, it is the Senate and the House responsibility not to approve such bogus appropriations with our funds. I also agree that we have to reflect how we use our money. And if we're not, it's like going to school and then you, at the end of the year, you don't see your report card. You don't even care what grades you get. If we really intend to move the needle, if we really intend to improve, we have to measure where we were and how far we've come. If we're continuously doing this without measuring our progress, how will we know that we're doing the right thing with our money? So it is definitely a performance evaluation is required. And what I do notice lately, that Mr. Dillon, Senator Dillon, is he's digging deeper into these budgeting. He's now talking about the debt servicing. A lot of our budget goes to debt servicing. He's beginning to make more of an introspection on this budget, because largely it's just been a photocopy of the last year and add some year and there and then simply send it on. It should not be that way. But the only place that this can change is when the Senate and the House do their homework, do the research that they're required to do to make the proper decisions on how our meager funds are going to be allocated. The responsibility falls flat on their shoulder. I notice a lot of the blame is farmed out to the executive branch, but this is equally their fault and their problem if we do not improve our livelihood by better using our funds. So this year, you don't hear talks of this. You don't hear talks of senators only rubber stamping, or senators not doing the requisite homework and studies in order to determine that the budget was well prepared. We need to hold them to a standard. And as long as we're not bringing these things up and challenging them, it will be same like past administrations. So yeah, these are the things we need to start talking about every single day before the elections.
Thank you very much, Jimmy. Mr. Padmore, when we were young, those of us that were born President Todman's time, my father used to say, when President Todman came to Bassa, he wore his safari jacket. He said he wouldn't even count the money. He puts his hand in his right hand, whatever he puts his hand on, he gives it to you. So Todman was a benevolent president. And in fact, the prayer of my father and my grandfather was that President Todman is going to die in the chair. And exactly what happened, he died in the chair because he was such a generous person. He had the coffer. He could do whatever he could do. And he did it. He gave the largesse to our folks. Palmer came and did something similar. Taylor came, he did something similar. Ellen Johnson came, he did something similar. from what we have seen, according to Ben, and which is factual, when you look at the budget, that line item said $700,000 for the presidential projects. Patmore, those that are supposed to do the check and balances, they agreed to this line item. What surprises me here is that the presidential contender, Mr. Ben Kofa, have not said to us, from president, how he is going to eliminate some of the things and what he's going to put in place. Instead, he said it is illegal. Mr. Patmore, you from the ANC, what will you guys do? What do you have in writing that we can say on your website or in your possession that some of these things need to go by the wayside? It be something in writing where we can go and look at, either on your website, in your possession, that you can send us, that we can look at if this is not right.
Well, as everybody knows, the website is up. Also, as everybody knows, as all of Liberia knows, that Mr. Cummings very frequently says you can't keep doing the same thing. Whether Todmo, Toro, Chatila, or Ellen Johnson, you cannot keep doing the same thing and expecting different results. The people's money is not the president's money to put in his pocket, in his safari jacket, and go from place to place and buy votes. This is campaign year. This is election year. You don't give the president almost $1 million to go and buy votes and call it a humanitarian effort. You don't do that, you know? And look, I understand the argument of one group saying, look, but if it passed the legislature and it's signed to law, then it's law. Look, there are two responses to that. The first one is, all law is not good law.
Yes.
There's bad law.
Yeah.
The second thing is that not everything the legislature does is right. That's why we have the Supreme Court. There are many times that the legislature will pass a law. I'll give you an example. President Joe Biden passed a law concerning student loan forgiveness. It was challenged in the Supreme Court, and right now it's pending. And the Supreme Court has put a stay on it and said no money going out until the Supreme Court makes a decision. I will encourage Ben and those who disagree with this in the budget to challenge it in the Supreme Court. That the legislature can just hand the president campaign funds. We have a law in Liberia that says that the government cannot use government resources to campaign. And they can stand on that law and say, look, this $700 and something that is going to be used for campaign. And I will encourage them to do that. We can't keep doing the same thing and hoping that we'll get it different. No, it's absolutely wrong. I totally agree with Ben. Totally.
Great. Ben, yes, a few minutes here. Go ahead.
I don't want to react. You see, guys, thanks. It's unfortunate I find myself agreeing with Mr. Padmo today, which is unusual. But you see, the president cannot have close to $1 million designated as humanitarian outreach. But let me tell you this, you raise some important, but you say, what would I do? Budgets, most times they come from the executive. It wouldn't be in the budget because that's a total misappropriation. It wouldn't be in the budget. The president's office is not a humanitarian office. He's there to do a job, to manage the state of affairs of Liberia. He's not a humanitarian. It's not. And it is worrying to me that all of the guys on this show today, nobody talk about the performance of last year's budget. My brother, we had $800 million plus. We don't know the effect that money had on the Liberian people. We had appropriations. Last year, Minister of State got $20 million. We don't know the impact. Let me give you one last line. Next year's Minister of Agriculture is in the budget. Now listen to this. One of their achievements for this year, they listed a national rabies outreach. Rabies, I don't know what the Minister of Agriculture is doing with dogs. That's one of the achievements for this year. That's what is listed in next year's budget. a national rabies program. Then for next year, the Ministry of Agriculture has 0 objectives. 0 objective. The Ministry of Agriculture is our only means out of poverty in Liberia. We have rice price increase. We have we had a unexplained 11 million subsidies. We have issues with rice in Liberia. The Ministry of Agriculture has 0 objectives for next year in the budget. But guess what happened? When the budget is passed, that's when we know the objectives. We can put the cart before the horse. My brother, all I'm saying is, before budgets are passed, we must have budget performance report reviewed properly. Then they can impact the future appropriations. And I will tell you this, one thing I want to end with, there were bad laws before. Padma was right. Slavery was legal in the United States. It was illegal for a black man to be educated. It was illegal. Those were bad laws. So when we see bad laws, we should speak against them. And like he rightly said, some of us need to challenge these things. We cannot give the president close to $1 million during an election year and title it as humanitarian outreach. $700,000. That is total wrong. It's a misappropriation. That won't happen under me because there is no need for the president office to be conducting humanitarian outreach. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Kofa 2023, you are telling us that under your administration it wouldn't happen, but you didn't say how. Mr. Jimmy Eastman, usually when I go do budget presentation, whether it's in Tallahassee or to the Senate or wherever, when I say this is how I'm going to do it, I need my line item to be $200,000. The question is usually how, why, when, and where. Those questions have to be answered in that order. Ben is a politician. He's not going to do that because for a law to be changed, it has to be championed by someone. And the question has to be why, when, where, and who's going to be doing it. Now, He's not saying that. He's not telling us anything about his website or documentation that addresses that particular issue. So here we are now talking to a politician or strong politician at that. A gentleman who says, I will put chicken in every pot, but he won't tell you how the chicken is going to be grown, where it's going to be, who's going to be responsible for those chicken, how it's going to get from the farm to your pot. But he's promising everybody that this is what's going to happen without telling us how he's going to derive at that. No website, no documentation, no publication, no political paper, no policy paper. Same questions that I asked Mr. Cummings. He goes around and quoting Albert Einstein. There's nowhere that he can show us that he has done any of these things, that he would do them, that for any other reason he has ever dealt with government to impact. Tell us here, you've been around as long as I've been when it comes to politics and public policy. What should Mr. Ben do to help him out? Let's help him out here.
Yes, I love the help him. You can tell that he's a politician, especially when he makes the claim that agriculture is the only way Liberia will see out of poverty. Politicians have a way of saying things, but they're technically wrong when they say some of these things. If we review the portion agriculture contributes to GDP, we will find that agriculture performs poorly. We have 70% of our labor force in agriculture, plus, but yet they contribute less than 10% to the national GDP. Now, agriculture is essential. We must be able to grow what we eat, but we shouldn't be fooled to think it's that profitable or that something that's going to generate a lot of revenue. Historically, this is not the case. It takes years to develop agriculture to a very proficient level where you begin to export it before you start seeing revenue come in. But it is essential, and we have to do it. But it's not a fit. It's not. I believe the solution to Liberia's problems is coupled to education reform and improving the skills of our labor force and the reduction of illegal corrupt acts. Those two things go together. But also, we want to consider what Ben said about budget performance. I think we did touch it. We said you have to examine your report card. I don't understand how ministries are preparing budgets without reviewing what the last year performance was about. It is clear that they're only cookie cutting or copying last year's budget and adding to it. It is clear because there's no examination of the past performance. And who's going to cause that to change? One or two ways. The executive can demand more from his ministers before they submit a budget review. The finance minister can be on top of it as well. Before they to project a new budget, you are asked to evaluate the performance of your past. The Senate and the House, what Dylan is saying today, then do not pass a budget until you have proven what you did with the last money we gave you. This is only proper. And for us to be talking about this in 2023, when this is rudimentary of any government, any organization that means to progress, you have to examine your performance. So it's surprising that this is going on. And if we look at it, it may mean that other things are being touted, or this is a way of masking other things behind this. That is why they're not doing the very necessary, the minimal to forecast budget. So and Samator is a smart guy. He can get the ministers to do the due diligence. But why isn't it being done? I think that's the biggest question. Why isn't it being done? I don't think it's not because they don't know how to do it.
I think the last time the minister was on one of our shows, he said quarterly reports are available on the finance minister's website. And then he also said, listen to when the president comes, when the president does his year in review or the State of the Union address, those things will be available. So let's look out to it. I have not been to the website lately, but let's before we move on, I think my friend, welcome here to Emmanuel Achampong, a very good friend of ours here. I'm looking at Mr. Smith, G. Smith from Buchanan. We see a lot of great folks tuning in. Let's go to the next thing here. That's something that we all have an interest in. Yes, you can report when let me introduce the second topic here. We are going into, we are talking about the census. The census, for those of us who have been part of the census before, or who understand what a census is not an electoral document. It is more than that. And we're going to discuss that. Census is a potpourri of data collected on basically every citizen, every household, the population, our deficit, our deficiencies, where our needs are, the least and the greatest. How do we redistribute wealth, the nation's capital? This is what is encapsulated in the census. For politicians, they love to look at census as only an electoral process document. That's not it. It's just a fraction. The electoral process is a fraction of the census. Census gave us the entire demographics. So, Mr. Padmore, census is something that you particularly have an interest in, is your pet peeve. Talk to me about the census. What worries you about the census?
We have elections in 10 months. We don't only have presidential elections, we also have representative elections. Representatives are allotted by districts. Districts are created by the number of people in a certain area. Right now, as we speak, we don't even know how many districts are going to be created because of the census. How do you even move forward? how does the National Election Commission even move forward when they don't even know how many districts? How do people who want to run for representative position even know where they're going to fall? Or how do they come up and make their intentions known to the National Elections Commissions? All those things are tied into it. The reason, yes, census is not only about elections, but the reason why we are tying the census to the elections is because this is election year. How do you do voter registration when you don't have a census? One's supposed to back up the other. One's supposed to complement the other. How do you even do that? You know, all this is tied into it. And we still see a government. There's a reason why people do census 10 to 14 days. All over the world, never more than 14 days. People die. People are born. People move. You can't do census in 2 months. So much happens in 2 months. Your data will never be correct. Your data will never, and this is what we're working on. You know, and this government has just chosen to just drop the ball and just pretend like nothing happens. The president came by, the president didn't even mention census. Since he's been by, he hasn't mentioned the census. He doesn't even care. He doesn't even care. You know, and this is extremely worrying. Extremely.
Thank you very much. If you want to be fair here, be very analytical. Take out your political hats. Take out your partisan hat. And let's look at the data here. You saw the vice president when she addressed the nation. She says, based on our coordination with our international partners, and 70%, 75% of the work of the censorship is being done by actually our international partner. Our contribution of meager $3 million was not even anything compared to what is needed to run this whole thing. So here we are, the vice president told you that the legislative body of the Republic of Liberia gave us up to January 20th to have completed all our data collection, to have everything ready for the national review. That is on course. The vice president last week was interviewed, I think it was on Thursday, when she said, we are 90% completed. We have completed 90%. Basically, what we are doing is just mapping up, meaning we are putting our numbers together by the 17th, 18th of January. Everything is going to be ready. By the 20th, according to the legislative body, the census will be complete. The data will be available. The data will be analyzed. Everything is on course. Mr. Eastman, the two gentlemen here, they are politicians par excellence. We are talking about a presidential aspirant here who is trying to unseat a sitting government that have performed so well to the point where we say we're going to win this thing in the first round. To another gentleman here who is masquerading as one of the top political party, ANC, who is saying, doing the same thing over and over, and you're expecting a different result, is insanity. Yet and still, he talking from the left side of his mouth. On the right side of his mouth, he brought in David McIntosh from Charles Taylor. He brought in Louis Brown from Charles Taylor. He brought in Wisner from Charles Taylor and Ellen Johnson Sirleaf. I mean, we are talking about retrogression going all the way back now. We are talking about the bottom of the deck. So here he is as a politician trying to tell us that we are doing the same thing over and over. And right before our eyes, he have not even taken office yet. And he's polling cards for the bottom of the deck. Mr. Eastman, you are the neutral body here. We are talking about census. You know the importance of census. You know our obstacles and our challenges in Liberia in particular. We are doing the best we can. Talk to us. What do you see the census to be going? What have we done right? What have we done wrong?
Okay, Mr. Gamer, I'm just going to come clean. It is as if the significance of the census is not being realized on our officials. Why do we conduct the census? We conduct the census so we know how government resource will be allocated. That's one of the reasons. We conduct the census for apportionment. In other words, if people move from area to area, then we may have to pull more funds. For instance, if people have now moved back to Tapeta or other places where they were not, now we need additional funds. We will not know that without a census. And especially the political aspect, as Mr. Padma alluded to, redistricting. Do we need new senators in some places, or do we need fewer senators or representatives in places? So a census, after it's been what, I believe 10 years, or the last one was in 2008, we definitely have to have one. But I saw our brother Sam Wallow commented, why is the president responsible when there's a failure? This is something to bring up, because these entities, the census, all these things are supposed to be properly functioning. The president doesn't have to intervene in everything. That's why he has deputies appointed. Now, all the president does is hold his deputies accountable. So why this thing goes back to the executive, the chief executive, is because he's got to hold these people accountable. And if they do not function, if they do not do the duties that they were appointed to do, there has to be corrective action taken. And that is where the fault is. But it is as if we have lost the sense of importance of a census, and many other factors, many other industries, education, everything has lost its importance. So I believe the only way out is shows like Focus on Liberia, bringing these things to the attention of the public, to make more people aware that these things have to be addressed, and they have to be addressed properly.
Thank you very much. Kofa.
Yes.
Census, for you who is running for president, this is very, very important to you, because this will determine whether you become president 2024 or George will become president or stay.
Yeah, but please, you told me I had to react to Mr. Ismail, so I want to just chime that in. Mr. Ismail raised a good point. He said 70% of Liberian workforce is based in agriculture, and yet they contribute 10% to GDP. He makes my point. 70% contributing 10%. It means that in the agricultural sector in Liberia, there is no strategy, as well as there's no funding. Mr. Ismail, I don't know if he's aware of this. Last year, the EPS, which I'm sure is less than 200 men, they got more funding than the Ministry of Agriculture. The EPS got more money in the budget than the Ministry of Agriculture. So of course, you will have people resorting to what you call subsistence farming. For farming to be effective in any nation, you need what you call large-scale mechanized farming. And you also need a comprehensive program. The government has no agricultural strategy. And yet, this sector is 70% of our workforce. So obviously, it demands attention. It demands attention. Let me come to the next one. Census. You see, I see people talking. And my thing, before I deal with issue, I say, how did we get here? How did we get here? The Unity Party, they said at the time they were leaving, they didn't have enough money, or they didn't raise enough money for the census. But let me go to how much the census cost in Liberia. The census is $18.9 million. But let me tell you this, sir. The census is way late. The last census in Liberia was held in 2008. Census comes most time on a 10-year time span. I wrote about it like a couple of weeks ago. The data that we will get from this census, in my estimation, the data will not be credible. It will not be credible because the census, the entire operation was bungled. Ismail talk about somebody holding his lieutenant accountable. I think the president himself should be held accountable here. The president himself should be held accountable. Look at how this is one, people don't understand the importance. The data we get from this determines the government strategy. It determines how the government plans. We have to develop the country. We have to know how many households, how many people are living where. That's how we plan to improve people's lives. The census was bungled. The data that will come from this census, I want to declare personally, I will not believe that number because for me, they will not reflect what I call empirical data. So the government bungled this whole thing. This is a monstrous show of shame and is yet another reason why the CDC doesn't deserve re-election. This is incompetence at the highest level. There's nothing to discuss here. The CDC bungled this thing. This is a national disgrace. Sorry, I have to say it. Thank you.
Mr. Fennell, real quick, let me bring you to a checkpoint here. You said the government has no strategy on agriculture.
Yeah.
I know you're speaking as a politician. You will never speak to the fact. But a few weeks ago, maybe a little over a month, the president put together an ad hoc committee to do research and report to the president or to the nation as to what should be our stand. And that ad hoc committee reported to the nation. And the president took action. And the action was supported by the World Bank. And we got $31 million infused into the agriculture sector to go directly into mechanized farming and to small farmers. This is something that, Ben, you should have known. You should have been clapping because according to you, when you win the next election, this $31 million is still going to be there from the World Bank that you will be able to utilize. You don't even know what is going on at the World Bank, at the Ministry of Agriculture. Ben, I'm a little shocked that you didn't know that you didn't mention that, you didn't know that the president had put together an ad hoc committee to address the rice shortages, to address the price increase on rice, and to address where do we go next. And all of these were in the news. I'm surprised that you missed that. But as it may be, you are no different from the ANC. Today when I went to church, my pastor preached. He says, why do you go to church? Most people go to church to see what they want to see, to hear what they want to, despite what is obvious. So here we are, the ANC now, COFA 2023. You are seeing things that are not there or that you want to see. You are hearing things that you want to hear. You didn't see or you didn't hear about the ad hoc committee that were put together. You didn't hear about the recommendations that were made. You didn't see or hear about the $31 million from the World Bank. All of these things are obvious. They're in the public glare. But as politicians, you didn't see it. Now, coming to the census here, yes, it is important. You, as a politician, you will see what you see or what you want to see. You are saying in your book, before the census is even completed, you have killed it. You say it's invalid. It will be invalid. You remind me of Joe Biden when he says, when the Republican wins, then the election is good. When they lose, then it's not good. Same thing like the ANC and Darrell Dillon. Darrell Dillon won 2020 when the opposition won all the elections in Liberia. They clapped for the Elections Commission. They were good. When they lost the election in Lofa County, all of a sudden, the Election Commission is suspect. It looks like now they are looking at this coming pending election. COFA 23 is going to be defeated. ANC is going to be defeated. all of a sudden they are preempting and saying that it will not be credible. But the international community that is helping to do the census, saying by the 20th, everything will come together. And as long as the international community, the UN, the US, the EU that are involved say that it is credible. Not 100%, we are not looking for perfection. That is credible. What Padmo says, what COFA 2023 says, means very little. Mr. Padmo, Mr. Eastman here, before we move on to our crowd and corruption here, talk to us the legitimacy if the international community that is involved, that purchase, program, the tablets that were given to these folks that are following through on this, if they come back and say it is not perfect, but it's acceptable, what should the opposition do?
The opposition should condemn it. It has to be thrown out. And as for
Mr. Eastman, this man, no matter what president we are,
I mean that Jimmy O'Tona. Jimmy showed it there.
No, he was on mute. You see, you are in opposition, so you will never see anything good in the Mr. Eastman. You're the neutral guy here. These two guys are fighting for. They want something that I have, which is George Weah, and they will never get that. Go ahead.
So, could you rephrase the question?
Oh, that question was long, my man.
If the international community that is helping to do the census comes out and say it is not perfect, but it is acceptable, what would say you?
Oh, well, okay. I'm not one that favors international people dictating to us what should be good and what should be bad. We have to have the ability, the capability to evaluate and test things for ourselves. We're not supposed to be told what is good for us. So if they are donating to us, you understand why their leverage is as such, because they will say, well, looking at your census, we consider that credible. You need this. So you can understand why they are melding in our affairs in a way, because we're always with our hand out. But at the same time, if you say it's not credible, then you will have to go into it and show and legally challenge it. I think Padmo talked about legally challenge, or was it Finn? Legally challenge it. If you said the Census Bureau did a bad job, and you take it to court, and that's the only redress for something like this. If it's a botched job that has to be redone, then you have to take it to court. But we can't just say what if the international people say it's okay, then we go with it. We need to be able to evaluate things on our own. But for the purposes of loans and grants, and once they say that the census is acceptable, then they will not hold back grants and loans. But if they determine that the census is bogus, that will be a problem when it comes to getting outside funding and investment.
Thank you. Gentlemen, we are running out of time here. Mr. Fennell, hold on to your topic. Let me introduce, hold on to your rebuttal. Let me introduce the next topic here. There's something now in Liberia, not something now, it's something that we use when it's convenient in your favor, you like, when it's the opposite, you dislike it. It is thing called crowd in Liberia. When someone is having an event, and it is well attended, we say those people were paid. When it's poorly attended, we say it was undermined by either the opposition or the party in power. So here we are lately, a few years ago when Costa came into Liberia, it was like Jesus coming into Jerusalem. This time around when he came, the crowd was sparse. No one met him at the airport, less than 100 folks. And he drove around Monrovia several times to gather a crowd in the yard of the UP. And he said that he turned to a preacher. He says, even though my reception was not as it was, when the four, he said, when the people came to see Jesus, it was only 4 wise men, not the whole world, even though we know there were not 4 wise men. But he said 4 wise men. So justifying the failure of his crowd. But crowd is part of our political, should I say, part of our political lingo. We look for crowd. When the ANC or the CPP had the dismal performing rally that had less than maybe 1,000 people, they blame it on the police state. They blame it on the military. And when the president came to town, it was like Liberia came to a standstill. Like Jesus was coming to Jerusalem, people would say, Hosanna, Hosanna, calling him the king. And my partner here, Padua, said the president paid the folks to be over there. So let's talk about the importance of crowd. Why is it important? Is it important at all? Mr. Kofa, you 2023, you were about to go to Liberia. What should we expect?
Well, the first thing I want to go back to one thing you said regarding agriculture. Mr. Gilman, you are my very good friend, but I'm sad that you will quote $31 million initiative for a nation of 5.1 million people and banded that. If you look at the World Food Program website for Liberia, they say Liberia suffers significant food insecurity, significant. And let me just use the word that is said. Let me use the exact word because I want to just say what they said. The World Food Program on Liberia. Hold on a second. I want to read the exact word so it can be word for word. Yeah, they said, despite a conducive climate and good soil for crop and production, Liberia has long suffered from insecurity due to extreme poverty, endemic inefficiency of the country's food and agriculture sector. Endemic inefficiency. So you see, the agriculture sector in Liberia is literally dead. It comes across as the government has no vision. Mr. Gilman, as we speak, the agriculture minister is indicted for corruption, and 5 of her officials, they are indicted for corruption. She has no strategy. Now, crowd, I've always said this. The notion, the practice of crowd, going to welcome somebody, should be done away with. I asked somebody yesterday, imagine those young men out there in the streets. If they had jobs, they would have been at work. They would have punched their clock and be working. What we witnessed was the showcase that the government of the day has zero strategy in terms of the unemployment levels in Liberia. Costa comes to Liberia, he says nothing new. Costa is a waste of time. Costa said nothing new. That's the same thing opposition have been doing in Liberia it's like a playbook. They come to town, they insult George Weah, they expect to get a call and get a job. Costa offered nothing yesterday. Nothing. The president is good for nothing. The president called, no. But Costa offered nothing in terms of alternatives. If George Weah is doing this, this is what we intend to do. No solutions, no alternative, and the fact that you expect people to leave their daily hustle, their daily grind, to deviate from that to come and welcome you should be an embarrassment. I want nobody to welcome me in Liberia. These people have lives to lead. They have children to take care of. They have houses to take care of. It is a wrong practice. All of us should frown upon it. We take people from their useful work. Ministers, that's a waste of man hours and resources to go welcome the president to see him off. That should be a shame for all of us. I don't want nobody to welcome me. No, not a single soul. I will speak to Liberians one at a time. Retail politics. That's a shame and that's a disgrace. So Costa has nothing to offer. It's nothing. He's just going to make noise and hopes he get a call. This is how all of them do. Let me just say one last thing. Smith, Toby. He used to be with OK FM. Smith Toby, there was a time a few years ago, he insulted George Weah for a whole month. Smith Toby, he was insulting George Weah every day. This is the playbook for the opposition. Now that George Weah have made him secretary, he said George Weah is a god. These people have zero integrity. They have no alternatives. They have no solutions. They are following the playbook of Liberian opposition politics. Just make noise with the hope that whoever is, on top of things will call you and give you some piece of the pie. Costa represents a disgrace, complete disgrace. Thank you.
Mr. Patmore, we are talking about crowd. Is it significant? Does it have any meaning? Does it bring anything to the table?
First, let me correct a few things you said before, and then I'll get to the crowd. You spoke about agriculture, and you were smiling and sitting there very boisterous about World Bank giving money, and now the president is setting up a committee to decide how they're going to spend that money. Let's be serious here. It's been 5 years. 5 years, and the president's still setting up committee. You don't have an action plan for agriculture? You still set up committee? That's the first thing. And when we hear about World Bank, these things are not free money. They're loans. These are loans that you and I have to pay back tomorrow. These are not free money. Okay? And to one point, just so you know, it wasn't 31 million, it was 20 million. But to move on to the crowd. Look, you can read what you want to read in the crowd. Okay? I know. I remember CDC. The CDC that I know, people used to walk by land from Nukutan, carry their own T-shirt to the CDC headquarters to be printed. Today, the CDC cannot pull even half of that crowd when they provide buses and free T-shirt. That tells you something about the president and the satisfaction of his own partisans. Everybody else is only trying to catch up. So you can look at ANC crowd and look at whoever crowd and say, oh, well, this and that. But CDC has opened the crowd portal and they cannot anymore pull crowds. That tells you that Liberian people tired with that. The Liberian people tired with that nonsense. And the Liberian people want a change. They want a change. And it's sad that the CDC is not seeing it is great for the opposition. And we will capitalize on that. We will speak to the people. We will tell the people what we have to offer in due course. And when the people hear what we have to offer, we are confident that this will be Liberia's first and last mistake. No second term for George Weah.
Mr. Padmore, Mr. Eastman. Mr. Padmore and the ANC, they ran an election in 2016. They got only 7% of the population. Since 2016, they've been running. You hear him here. It might be a breaking news. He said we got 10 months now. He's been running election for the past 7 years. He has not spoken to the folks. He said, we will speak to the folks. We got 10 months now, but this man been running this campaign since 2016. And the most he could do last term was 7%. And Joe, we have beat him. Bronskin beat him. Even Prince Johnson beat him. Where does this man... you don't have time, Mr. Padma. ANC does not have time.
Why you can't ask me? What are you asking the man for? You sort of ask me. I don't want to tell you.
You said it. You said you will talk to the folk. Mr. Eastman, we got 10 months here.
Political campaign.
got 10 months here. This man been running elections since 2016, and he has not spoken to the people. He got 10 months. He said he will speak to the people. Where does ANC stand? Be honest.
Is that one of the topics?
Be fair. Should you tell him to just maybe join COFA 2023 or just, well, we're hearing, even though here we are kind of join here, but when I leave from here, he will be talking to me behind the scene, CDC. You heard Jefferson Koji say his job is to bring them back. And for the sitting Secretary General of the party to say, I am holding them in, that means he has hooked them already. You know, when you go fishing, when you say I'm pulling it in, you have hooked them. So I want to believe, Mr. Padmore, a few months from now, both of us are going to be here selling CDC. Talk to me.
Yeah. So, for my little brief understanding or superficial understanding of politics, I know a lot of it is about perception. The perception you create in the minds of the people about the candidate or the situation. And if you know how to ride that wave of perception, you can easily sway people to vote for you. George Weah, the perception of George Weah, he is a man of the people, from the grassroots, from humble beginnings, who rose to the top from his own sweat and became a national hero. I see the handlers in the ANC have not done a good enough job bringing that perception of the standard bearer to be one of the people. They have struggled with it. I hear in the corners that this is a bourgeois team, elitism, and all of that. Because I hear these overtures, then it tells me that they're not perceiving him the way they would like to. And they have to change that narrative. Boakai. What is the perception of Boakai? Boakai is a perception that he's an elder person, has been respectable, has not been in any broad scale scandals. He has been in regimes that have been deemed corrupt, but his hands have not come up with bloody hands. So he's perceived as somebody that you can rely on, that you can trust. So the people, they kind of drawn to him because of those features and his elderliness and all. We come from a society that we respect elders, so that helps him come with his perception of somebody acceptable. But I realized that we in this diaspora, we don't think like the typical Liberians. The people who are on ground have a whole different perception of what they need to do and what they don't need to do. They're not examining things from our perspective. And because of that, I believe that it's a big uphill battle for any opposition, especially a splintered opposition that is going against themselves. So that I don't have warm fuzzy feeling about it. I agree with many things that Ben and Michael are saying that need to be changed. I didn't say that they don't, but I'm saying, are you really swaying voters? Are you selling that perception of your candidate that's going to resonate with the people? And that's where the real rubber meets the road.
Great. Let's go, Mr. Ben. I know you're going to get back to that. Let's introduce the last topic here, so we want to go to a few comments and then close and get out of here on time. The corruption in Liberia. Today, I was reading on Daniel Cheer's page, and he said something that I have always said, that we all know. People do not get into government and become corrupt. I have always said that people are inherently corrupt. You get into government, you have the opportunity. Now you are engrossed. And I'm saying this to say, when Mary Brown was doing her LEC tour around the country, around Monrovia in particular, you found that the Speaker of the House was ensnared in stealing current. The former Speaker, Nukwe, was caught stealing current. We saw some of our former senator from Sino County was caught stealing current. Churches, our moral fabric, were stealing current. Mosques were stealing current. So when we talk about corruption in Liberia, let's talk about it on the holistic, from a holistic point. If the Speaker of the House can steal current, the Speaker of the House, the Deputy Speaker, churches, our moral fabric, the mosques. Ben, I don't know whether you paying your bill down there, but talk to me. What does this say about who we are and the government that you want to run?
Okay, the first thing I want to say, I want to just go back to what you said. You see, please don't make me talk for the ANC because I am not a fan of them, but I'm forced to defend them because of what is right. You said something about how much how much the ANC got in the last election. Then you said that I think that is a kind of a showcasing of what they will do in the next election. But let me get you this: we have historical data. I'm talking about verifiable data on the NEC website.
Yeah,
Ellen Johnson Sirleaf.
Real quick. I'm coming to this. Mr. Comey says past performance.
Yes.
Okay.
I know. But what I'm saying is, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf in the election of 1997, she got 9%. Chancellor won that election by 73%. Ellen Johnson Sirleaf came and won the 2005 election. So you see, in Liberia, it's not about ideology. What has happened right now? The CDC's performance for 5 years is working against the CDC. The CDC has been shown to be incompetent. I mean, dangerously incompetent. Can't run a census. Literally can't keep the light on. Like the first thing we talk about, the CDC puts in the budget of next year that the LEC, the sole provider of energy in Liberia, they expect LEC to run next year at a loss. It's in the budget. But the management team at LEC is still there. This is incompetence that's unimaginable. It's in the budget. So the CDC has done the work for the opposition don't need to do nothing. The CDC has defeated itself. So the election will literally be a protest against the CDC's performance. Because let me just come to the last thing you said. You see, in Liberia, the most important thing that we lack is accountability. There are thieves, there are criminals, there are bad people everywhere. But when your system of justice is not framed in a way where it holds bad actors accountable, you can have anything possible. Nukwe, I don't know him, but the story, I kind of researched it a little bit. They said he owns that piece of property, and I think he leased it out to some people, but ultimately he's responsible because it is his stuff. Because if you rent it out, ultimately it's still under your name. But the thing is, Nukwe is not the only thief in Liberia. George, we have left Liberia for 48 days, even against laid down constitutional as well as a code of conduct rules. 48 days. And that should be more causes for us to be angry as compared to Nukwe. George, we have left the country for 48 days. And he's back. The legislature is not even giving him a censure. What the cost of his trip? How large was the delegation? Nobody knows. Mr. Twe came out and said he signed a blank document. You don't know, up to this, we don't know the cost. We don't know how much Liberia incurred. And we talk about nuclear, who's paying, $5 grand, $6 grand. How many people are on job? We are team. What is the cost? How much did Liberia bear in? Maybe they can say, well, somebody paid for this leg of the trip. Yes, but what was the expense that Liberia bore, on that trip? So nuclear, fair enough. It's a total systemic lack of accountability. So nuclear is just a piece. We should hold everybody equally accountable under our laws. Thank you, sir.
Mr. Padmore, you see how the politicians speak. He sidestep what I'm talking about, corruption, that is systemic, that corruption. We are, as people, intrinsically we are corrupt, and when we get into government, we see the opportunity to engross the corruption. And I asked him, what will he do? You notice he didn't say anything how he's going to do it. Instead, he attacked President Weah and says that nuclear stole 5,000 are nothing but 48 days. So I know he's a politician. He speaks like one. Mr. Padmore, we have issues in Liberia when it comes to corruption. When our churches, when our mosques, the people that are supposed to set our moral standards, they themselves are stealing. What does this say about the parishioners?
Well, when the president comes from a 50-day trip and stops in the house of worship to attack his political opponents, you tell me, what does that say? Look, whether there's corruption in the church, there's corruption wherever you want to put it, the president is a leader, is the leader of our nation. He has a constitutional obligation. Look, the church deal with the things the church way. The community does deal with in the community. The president is under obligation per the Constitution to carry out certain duties. And when he fails to do so, he is in violation and dereliction of his duties. This is why he was elected. Not to be humanitarian, not to be pastor, not to be footballer. He was elected for certain duties, and he's not doing those duties. And we want to find excuse in the church. We want to find excuse other places. It doesn't work that way. What is sucking the life out of Liberia is corruption all over the place. And the reason why it is permeating like that is because we see the leader is ineffective. The leader is ineffective. If George Weah was just passionate against corruption, Liberia will be, even with all of his imperfections, Liberia will still be dredging ahead. We will see certain things working. But because of the lack of this, here is where we find ourselves. And let me speak to this whole 7% perception that you guys running around here with. Darius Dillon ran for representative of a district. He got 14%. He came back and defeated CDC twice for the entire Monserrato. When CDC, during the 2017 election, CDC got 7% in Lofa. 7%. This 7% can be dancing around way. That's how much I got in Lofa, 2017, first round. And then CDC was able to go back into Lofa and defeat UP in their own backyard. Y'all continue dancing around with the 7%, and y'all don't do the work. And y'all continue to allow the Liberian people to suffer under your watch. And y'all think that ANC will not make the headways they need to make. We are not discussing CDC. We are discussing the people. That who we'll discuss with will do it under law during campaign time when we are supposed to legally, and we will continue to convince the people what is best for them. Thank you so much.
Mr. Padmore, you see,
you guys are lines now.
Mr. Eastman, these guys are politicians. You heard I asked him a question, he didn't answer any. He's talking about legally when it's time to campaign. A few weeks ago, they had something called a rally in at the SKD. It was supposed to be we are tired suffering. And when they got there, the people got there, and all of a sudden, in America, this is what we call it bait and switch. You call and say you are tired suffering. You come out here, we give you the platform, and all of a sudden you get there. Now it is all about ANC. It's all about Cummings, T-shirts coming, the president in waiting coming, the best president coming. Everything is coming, and Cummings sat there, and they stole. He sat there, and they pick his pocket. His cabinet team Cummings pick his pocket, $70,000 right under his feet. The boys that are street smart, they pick his pocket up to now. Cummings cannot account for $70,000. How he got our $70,000? Was it withdrawn legally from the bank? Can we trace that money? Why would $70,000 be given to a driver in the back of a Toyota, a Suzuki pickup truck? We want to know this. Why, for the man, he didn't address those things? This is corruption. When you're talking about corruption, when you withdraw $70,000 and give it to a cab driver in the back of a Toyota taxi cab to give people on the street without accountability, this is corruption. When we say corruption is systemic, they don't want to address this. Mr. Cummings have never said, this is how I'm going to address. In fact, we have a new name for Mr. Cummings. Everything is, I want to, I want to, I want to. So his name now is Mr. I want to. Mr. Eastman, talk to me. These two politicians, put them aside. Corruption in our country, from the forming of this country to where it is now. Why has corruption defeated everybody except George Weah?
You said, why has it defeated everybody?
Obviously, because
except Georgia.
Yes, when Ellen came, she says corruption will be enemy number one, and Liberia was a very rich nation, but being poorly managed, and that she had an A team, and they would do this, they would do that, and at the end, she admitted that corruption was so powerful that she acquiesced, she gave up, she put her hand, she drew in the towel. Why has corruption defeated everybody that have come her way?
Well, to answer your question, I think the jury is still out on this administration. Yeah, they've been making many accusations about this administration. We see the sanctions that were placed on key officials, key government officials. So there is a cloud of corruption, even in this administration, that's hanging over. I'm not going to be dishonest here. When you go to Liberia and you try to transact any kind of business there, you have to kick back. From the policeman to the doorman to the man who takes your papers to the people who grant you licenses, every step of the way. So this is endemic, and I can't contribute this to the president. This is our way of doing things, and we have to be honest with ourselves to reverse this kind of culture that everybody has to take. I mean, long ago, you used to give somebody a little dash for helping you out to process your papers. It's not like that today. Before your papers get processed, you have to pay up front. This is not the president. This is us, our way of doing things. And to reverse that culture is going to take drastic counteractives. It's going to take putting people in jail and stripping them of their resources. That's how you're going to reverse that. Before Jerry Rawlings could cheat, Ghana was very much like to Liberia today. I want to tell you, it was very much like that. Before Rawlings changed Ghana, he had to even arrest his own relatives. That is the kind of way you have to deal with it. And Ellen didn't realize. I asked her that question when she came to a town hall meeting. how she will deal with it, and she says she will implement the law. But there's nothing wrong with the law. It's the implementation has been the problem, and she didn't take it. She didn't think it was an issue, and so here we are today. It is the way of the people. It's the way business is done. And for you to change that, we will not see that being changed unless we see some people going to jail, being stripped of their resources. That is when we're going to begin to see changes. Otherwise, it's going to be business as usual.
Thank you. Ladies and gentlemen, if you want to be part of the conversation, the number is on the screen, 605-313-6004. Access code 791403. You can take on Ben, Mr. Eastman, Mr. Patmore, or myself. We'll be waiting for your call. In the meantime, we are going to select about 4 or 5 of your comments, and then we'll go to closing. We have another show coming at 6 o'clock, but I want to remind you about our fundraiser here. Focus on Liberia is trying to reach every part of Liberia, especially this coming election. We need to have independent minds like Mr. Eastman and other folks like you reach the other places in Liberia. Besides me, Mr. Patmore, and Ben, that have an vested interest in the electoral process. Independent mind need to talk to our folks. On our screen is the donate to Focus on Liberia. The expansion, we want to expand in Liberia. So here you are, and you can contribute by any means. Whatever you chip in is going to be good for us. 651-399-1614. You can contact the office. We will take Cash App, we'll take Zelle, you name it. You want to send us a check, just call the office. They will tell you where and when to send that check. We appreciate you being tuned in every day, but we got to keep the lights on. Please contribute. You can do it monthly or you can do it annually. Either way, it's fine, but Focus on Liberia needs you. While we wait for calls, let's read 1 or 2 of the comments, and then we'll go to closing. Mr. Eastman, you can pick. Okay, there you go. You want to read the comments? Can you see it? Okay, this is from
Yes,
Elvis.
I see it. Okay, Elvis Morris. What about the functions of the legislators? Why aren't they checking to see if the president is carrying out his duties correctly? Why aren't they using their powers to balance the levels of powers? That was Elvis Morris.
Okay. Who want to take on that? Mr. Patmore, you want to take on? You want to take on this?
Why don't we ask Mr. Finn? Because Mr. Finn, being a candidate, he's going to need to deal with the legislature. Mr. Finn, you know we know how intelligent you are, and you have done a lot of research. But where the rubber meets the road, what are you going to do with a legislature like that as president?
Well, you see, I mentioned this thing earlier on. I want to mention it again. Accountability is the major element that is lacking in Liberian society. Like that post just said, we run a Republican-style government. We have a legislature, judiciary, and an executive. And what some people don't understand is that these are 3 equal but separate branches. That individual was right. They have the capacity, the legislature have the capacity to hold the president accountable. At the very least, they can censure him. But you see, in Liberia, especially when we look back like a few months ago, when CPP won, when they won almost a lot of the midterm elections, people thought things were going to change. CPP won most of the last by-elections. But in Liberia, the more things change, the more they remain the same. We have to have a leader who is committed to enforcing the laws to the letter. I think it was you, Mr. Eastman, you talk about Jerry Rollins. Jerry Rollins had, I think, about 6 men with him, but they were hell-bent. They were focused on doing the right things. And that's how you change behavior. You hold people accountable for wrong actions. So it boils down to the lack of accountability. That's the bottom line. The legislature is not holding the president accountable, and other law enforcement agencies in our country are not holding other people accountable. So the lack of accountability is pervasive. It has to be addressed. Laws have to be enforced. Thank you.
Excellent. Mr. Eastman, when we talk about, I know my friend here was one of the local campaign managers for Dillon, where Dillon was going against CDC T5. And he told me, he said, Jerome, I can assure you, when Dillon gets into the Senate, things will automatically, drastically change. And I said, Mr. Padmore, one guy would make that difference. He said, you look at the power of one. Today, when Mr. Rodney C.A., he was on one of our sister talk shows, and he said, not only did I give 14 months of my time and free airtime to Dillon, Dillon is a liar, a pathological liar. He said not only did he just lie on this flight thing, but he would be caught in lies again and again. And here we are, when Dillon stood in Liberia and told the folks, when I enter the house of elders, 10,000 is too much money. All I need is $5,000, and the rest will be given back to the Liberian people. He said, even if I were making 100,000, I would give $95,000 back to the folks. Today, Darius Dillon is the cheerleader for the 30 grand that's been given out, I get biannually for the folks. So I'm saying this to say, we have a legislative branch of government that is suspect. That is suspect. They are not there for check and balances. 99% of the guys who are there for themselves, as evident by Mr. Dillon. They are liars. They are kleptocrats. You scratch my back, I scratch your back. I wash your back, you wash your own belly. That's what it is. There's something systemically wrong with our culture, with our society. We have no ethics. We have no self-control. And we have a government system that elects people from among themselves. This is why we said this is a Republican.
Time. I have a question.
We elect people, excuse me. We elect people, we have to elect people that look like us, that talk like us, that behave like us. And that's why our people elected a crook like Darius Dillon. When Mr. Padmore was here, peddling Darius Dillon, that Darius Dillon was the light, that things are going to change. And today, Mr. Padmore is embarrassed.
Ask me.
He's embarrassed. I don't have to ask you. I know what you're going to say. He's embarrassed. Mr. Padmore, we got 5 people here. Counter that. And
we have people on the phone line. We have people here on CDC stop box. We have people on the phone line.
Go ahead. Get a call. Take the call, Mr. Padmore.
Okay. Thank you so much. Mr. Jah, are you there? If you can bring our callers on. Some of our callers complaining that they've been on hold for a while. Do we have anybody right now? Do we have any caller on right now?
Well,
are the engineers sleeping?
The engineer is at the helm. Carter, do you see what Dennis is telling you to do with that? Carter said we have 2 callers.
Okay, let's go ahead and bring the first one on.
We are ready to take them. Carter, bring them on. Okay,
while we're waiting for the technicians to bring our callers on, Mr. Padmore, I know
Yes.
you.
So ask me the question. Ask me.
No, I'm not asking any question. Okay, the question is Dylan a liar?
Is Dylan a liar? You asking me if another human being, Dylan has never lied to me. That would be my answer. Dylan has never lied to me.
Great.
It's already made truthful to me. Every time things have come up and I've reached out to Dylan, he's always been truthful to me. And this is a man. This is a man that has spoken against my political leader and my party. But I will not sit here and state lies about him. He has not. But what I will tell you is that for the first time in our history, we know how much senators make. For the first time in our history, we're able to watch live the Senate session. We're able to watch it. We're able to see who voted for what, who making arguments on behalf of the Liberian people. We're able to see that live. Wake up in the morning, I open Dara Dylan page, and watch the Liberian Senate session. Okay, I think we have our engineer on.
Okay, go ahead.
Go ahead, Gabe. Go ahead, Gabe.
Go ahead.
Okay. Are you guys getting me?
Yes. Caller, your name and where you calling from?
Yeah, thank you so much. This is Elvis Morris. I'm calling from Minnesota. Thank you again for the show, guys. I think Mr. Eastman, his last statement, he rightly put it. Our country is very corrupt. Individuals are very corrupt. Even this recent time, when this whole new meter business came up, I have family there. I was talking to them. We're laughing about it. When the meter business came, everybody was scrambling to try to go get a meter and just connect the illegal wires. I mean, the corruption is so widespread, So I don't think if Cummings coming there is going to change the individual corrupt, the person who is corrupt, individual who's doing corruption in their daily life, he's not going to change it. And I think, Mr. Gamer, you got to be honest with yourself. We hasn't defeated corruption. It has consumed him. The same way it did with many other presidents before him. So I think when it comes to corruption, like Eddie said, it's a vampire. It sucks the very blood out of the economy, out of the fabric of our society. So I don't think corruption is something we can easily defeat. It takes the entire mindset of the country to transform before we can even start to tackle corruption. But overall, it's a great show, and I think, when it comes to the Dylan question, before I get off, obviously, only a fool would think there's such a thing as an honest politician. If you show me an honest politician, I will show you a politician who is not in office. So thank you again so much for the show. Appreciate it. Continue listening offline. Thank you.
Mr. Carter is saying that Kofa, you are honest because you're not in politics. Okay, let's go to the next caller. Let's go to the next caller. Yes, man. Oh, Lord. Dualu?
Hello? Yes.
Go ahead. Yes.
Hey, this is Dualu, man. Gentlemen, thank you for the show, Eastman, Mr. Eastman, everybody up there. So, Mr. Gilman, I call for you very specifically.
Let's do it.
The last caller I just called, Liberians are not corrupt. I hear this when people always say this. I know this for a fact because when Liberians come to the West, there are regulations, there are consequences to their action. They don't behave corruptly. The system in Liberia forces them to be corrupt. In fact, it encourages them to be corrupt. Nobody in Liberia is corrupt. It's because of poor leadership that's why we're corrupt. Well, I call for this one reason. You said Dylan lied. Mr. Gilman, can you point to one thing that Honorable Dylan has lied about that pertains to the state?
Well, I'll give you two. The flight. He said he never flew.
That pertains to the state.
That's one. And two.
Point to one thing.
I just told you. He said he was not going to take $5,000 more than. He said he wouldn't take more than $5,000 of anything that was given in salary and perks.
That's not, you see, Mr. Gilman, when you do that, you're behaving as though you think your audience are not paying attention. And I think that's very, very wrong on your part. Dylan has never, under any circumstances, he would not take more than $5,000. Dylan recommended to the country that nobody in the legislature should take $5,000. He was forcing a bill through. The bill did not go through. And what he did was, he said anything above $5,000, he would donate it to all the organizations in the country. And there's verifiable proof that he's been doing that. So I don't see your point about saying, oh, they don't lie. President Weah lies about everything. This man child literally is destroying the country, and yet you sit in the comforts of a Western location where you know institutions govern this location, and yet you say you don't want institutions of Liberia. You want this man child to continue to ruin this country. You need to stop, Mr. Gilman. This is not okay. They're both more. They're from where?
Muhiko, ma Muhiko. Then I try and say you Muhiko. Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, that's my brother from Grand Bassa County. He's a supporter of the dead man walking, Joseph Boykai, and he should be the next commerce minister in waiting. You're going to keep waiting, my brother. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we have come to the end of our show. We'll take a minute each to do our closing. Thank you very much for tuning in. Mr. Jackson, Mr. Wallow, Real Access Pro, Malubat, I mean, everybody that tuned in, you guys did a great job here. President Fanel, Benjamin Kofa, Finn, 2023, I want to thank you very much for being so calm. You might have gone to maybe Tubman High School where you went through the debate process. You were very calm and collect. Thank you very much for being here. Tell us what you're going to do in your closing.
Well, you see, most time leaders should not say what I'm going to do. A leader should say what the people of Liberia is going to be inspired under my leadership to do. The thing is, Liberia can be better. Liberia will be better. The only thing that I would inspire people to do is to believe in the system of accountability. That is the only way we will move forward. Let me close with one last thing. Some of us on this show, we know we have or we know friends who have bought lands. You buy a land, and the next thing you know, after a few months or a few years, they say, "Oh, the land belongs to the other person." The other person, you know, simply because the guy who sold the land was not authorized to sell you that land, and there is no system in terms of verify who actually owns the land. The country is broken. Accountability is out of the window. We need to believe in that. We need to act different, and we need to hold ourselves accountable. Lastly, I want to demand that the lawmakers in Liberia demand from the Minister of Finance to produce a budget performance report of the budget of 2022. And I also want them to have a vigorous debate, especially so on the appropriations for next year's budget. I want them to delete line item number 1024 on page number 13 that gives $700,000 to the president of Liberia, titled humanitarian outreach. I think that is an illegal and misappropriation. It should be deleted. The president does not deserve that. He's not running a humanitarian outfit. He's running the nation of Liberia. I want to say thank you to all of us here today, Mr. Eastman, Mr. Padmo, who is my new best friend, and especially to you, Mr. Gaiman. I want to say thank you to everybody and every Liberian hearing the sound of my voice. Good morning, good afternoon, good night. I wish you a happy new year, and we look forward to a very vibrant 2023. Thank you.
Mr. Padmo, 1 minute. The politician to all the time.
Sure. Ben Finn, just so you know, you still have me blocked. So I just want to remind you, you still have me blocked. Okay. But you will always find a friend in me when you stand on the side of the Liberian people and stand for truth and justice. You will always find me. We've had our disagreements when you were a part of CDC. Now that I see that you have realized that CDC did not mean well, and as you continue to find your core, you will learn more and more that we are the same people. We are the same people. Concerning the budget, I want to encourage you, Ben, to work with a lawmaker to introduce a bill. Because what you are speaking of sounds more of something that should be a law. That if the executive branch does not provide performance reports, they should not get to submit a future budget. And I think that should be law. That should be law. Before you submit the budget to the next year, we should have performance reports for the last 4 quarters.
I agree with you.
Totally, it should be law. And I'm sure if you work with 1 or 2 people, you can get it put together, and then we can fight to put on the floor. But we can't just continue talking. We have to act. And I've learned that there are people out there who will act with you. Concerning the budget, one of the things I'm doing, I would like to encourage you to join me. We're trying to put together financial and legal professionals that will be funded by international partners that will evaluate the budget every time in council, break it down into different pieces, and provide it to the people. It's hard for the common people to understand the budget, and that is done intentionally. That's why they hide the 30,000. That's why they hide the 15,000. We have to have legal professionals that have no political ideology, and all they do is they evaluate. We used to have it before in Liberia called Budget Bureau. We don't have that anymore. We need to bring that back, and it needs to be internationally funded so they are independent of the Republic. Finally, concerning this whole agriculture and the debt, I wanted to come to you, Mr. Gimene.
You got to hold on, run out of time.
You guys are dancing once more when it comes to another loan. 2017, when the CDC took over, Liberia had $100 million in debt. Right now, Liberia is $1.7 billion in debt. You guys are mortgaging the future of our country and our children. Y'all need to stop. This government needs to stop. 20 million here, 300 million there, 40 million there, and we have no accountability. $1.7 billion, that's how much Liberia owes right now in debt. It needs to stop. The stealing must stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Eastman, unfortunately, he ate up your time. You got 1
Yeah,
minute.
I just need 30 seconds, I hope. It's you kind of wonder that a people, the Liberian people with so much potential, are seeing themselves struggle so much. And to me, the core reason is we are deceiving ourselves when we are not being honest and maintaining our integrity. We have a administration that is depending on loans before it pays salaries, and that is not the way we're supposed to function. It is not the way to run a government. We're supposed to generate revenue. If our administration is not generating revenue, then what's going to happen if we continually borrow to pay our regular debt? Just like Mr. Padmo was saying, we're going into oblivion. So we have to be, when we do not doing something correctly, we have to address it. If you have a dam and it's leaking, you have to stop the leaks. If there's something we're not doing correctly, we have to fix it. And I want to say this too. There are going to be politicians. The only thing we can get politicians to do is to mend the fences gradually. Dylan is trying to mend 1 or 2 of the fences. He's a politician. But that is what we have to do. We have to push them. We have to get the ones that will try to mend. There's so many things that are broken that need fixing. We need transparency. We need all these things in the Senate. But like this bill you talk about, yes, before any budget proposed, you must tell us what you've done with the last. That should be a given. So gradually, if we push the right people to start mending some of the fences gradually, then we will see ourselves coming out of where we are today in this poverty.
Thank you very much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you very much. 28, for my 1 minute, I would want to thank the President Dr. George Weah. We want to thank you for the roads. We want to thank you for the new hospital in Bapolo. We want to thank you for the roads in Grand Bassa County. We want to thank you for free tuition. We want to thank you for free wired for our children. We want to thank you for security in our country. We want to thank you for peace in our country. We want to thank you for being a man of the people. With that, we can assure you it will be a one-round victory. Dr. Weir's second term is assured. I see you 2024.
You're going to genuflex, gentlemen, man.
Listen, gentlemen, thank you very much. Tune in next time, same time, same hour, next Sunday. We will be here. If you have any idea that you want us to discuss, send it forward to us. If you want to take on our presidential aspirant, he's willing to discuss anything, take you on. If you want to take on Mr. Padmo, it's fine. Mr. Eastman is always here. Thank you, as always, we say, no matter your background and your political view, we are all Liberians. Thank you very much for tuning in. See you next Sunday, same time. Our song is We Are All Liberians. If our engineers are not asleep, that song should be coming on. Speak. If not, you want to.
Let me talk about comments. So
there you go. Yeah, you see, you don't want to play this song. I need Pablo to start. I don't want Ben to come out here when he gets started. So between him and Padmo, I take Padmo any day. Yeah, Mr. Padmo, go ahead.
Oh, so somebody mentioned concerning the 70,000.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little inside scoop, right? Somebody brought this up. Somebody asked Mr. Cummings this question, right? And said, Mr. Cummings, why did we have to announce that? Wouldn't it have been better if we had just kept it in-house? And Mr. Cummings replied to this person and said, just because things are convenient doesn't mean they are right. And we have to start with ourselves. So even though this was distracting, even though it helped, kind of put a blemish on our rally, but it was the right thing to do. And I felt very inspired because this was a closed door meeting. This was not open to the public. He could have been honest with us and said, we should have done, No, he was strictly, and it confirmed why I support this man. It just confirmed for me why I support Alexander Cummings. Because even, the people, when people do things,
Padmo, you say something and your face is saying something different.
Look, when people do things, when people do things in the public, and they are the same people in private, they are authentic. They are authentic.
Okay, Ben, you want to rebut that? I know I didn't want to bring it, but you got to say something. I can see it on your face.
Well, this is where I disagree with Mr. Padmo.
Thank you. I know you were not going to leave from here and agree.
Let me hear disagreement.
Yeah, Cummings, for the fact that we were unable to manage $70,000 of our own resources. I mean, the level, the degree of negligence. I mean, to such an extent where up to today's date, we don't even know who, what, when, where. I mean, this is cash. There should be literally the CPP or ANC should have a policy, a guidelines in terms of handling cash. We have our own resources. Sir, hold on. We have our own resources. If we are negligent to the extent with our own resources, what about when we have total control of the resources of Liberia? I mean, that was a bad sign, and I think it cast the ANC in a bad light. It did. Sorry, I must say that.
So one, you didn't ask what is our policy concerning handling cash. There is a policy. Okay. The second thing you have to understand is that Liberia is a cash economy. Liberia is not a kind of economy where you call everybody in the office and you hand them checks and say, "Here, go to the bank and pay this, and this." No, Liberia does not. Liberia is a cash. If you have an event that needs to go on and go on flawlessly, you do not deal in checks, because when you get that man check, when that man go to the bank, the first thing the bank will tell you, the person will tell you, say, or you know what happened? We get cash. Or if we're gonna cash this, you're gonna have to give us the see what Mr. Eastman was saying. To cash your own check, you have to forego some money. You understand?
No,
So, no, let me finish. Let me finish. Let me
don't
finish.
confuse people. No, don't confuse people.
No.
The
Let me finish.
cash
Let me
policy
finish,
to
Mr.
ensure
Kofa.
that
Mr.
two
Kofa.
people at all times. Two people. The newspaper story said the cash was left with the driver. If there was any serious policy, there should be two people at all times, or maybe more. You can have a cash 70,000 left with the driver. What kind of policy is that?
So the newspaper said that. Huh?
That's the story. Yeah,
that's what you said. The newspaper said. Okay, fine. That's what the newspaper reported. Why don't you wait for the investigation to come out so you can know exactly what it is? You see, you are coming up with conclusions.
You told me
you are coming up with conclusions
you said 72
on a news
hours.
story.
That was 3 weeks now. You said 73
But
hours.
allow me to chime in, and Michael, this is
Exactly.
something. Allow me to chime in. This is something very serious. There are people who know how to steal, and you can be the most honest. You can be a saint, Jesus Christ self, and they make you president. There will be the devils underneath you who are scheming to steal every kind of way. So if you are not aware and enact policies to control that urge to steal, you will have problems later on. Believe me, you can come be clean, but it will not be you that stole. It will be some kind of cahoot with a deputy and a controller or something like that who dupe the institution.
Exactly, you're absolutely right. Therefore, what you do is when those things occur, okay, you make sure you commission an investigation, and you follow that investigation to its logical end. And those people that committed the act, you set an example of them. That is how you start to change behavior. When people see that those who break the law are held accountable, then behavior start to change. If I sit here and tell you that nobody will ever steal, I'm lying to you. People are very creative, even in the US. But when they are caught, you hold them accountable.
You have to have preventive measures. You don't. Your goal should not be to solve crime. That is your asset. That's your resources. Your goal should be to prevent crime. That's why you have to put in guarding mechanism. That's what I told you. If you are handling cash, at the very least, there should be 3 people. 3 people. You can't have one guy handling cash. The policy is broken. But more, let's be fair.
So you think 3 people can steal? So you think 3 people can get and steal?
I'm saying we were talking about policy. The story said that the guy left the cash with the driver in the pickup, and you went to the office to come back. The driver was gone.
My question to you, your 3 people policy. You think the 3 people can get together, connive, and steal the money?
Well, what they will tell you, the chances of that occurring is very slim. That's what they will tell you.
What is that? In Liberia?
No, that's what Padmo, let's be brave. When we are telling you, we are wrong. This was a total failure. It was a failure.
Even if you have 5 people looking at that money still could have gotten missing.
Mr. Padmore.
Yes, sir.
You got a decision we should check out. So, guys, let's go. The next guy coming in, we got a new engineer here who is having a little difficulty. So we'll see you next Sunday, guys. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you also.
We are Labira. Labira is our home. Labira.